I've got a few questions. If banning people from countries because of their religion is bad, then why do 16 Muslim countries ban Israelis because of their religion?
So there's 46 Muslim majority countries in the world, and they don't all do it. And that's not a religious ban. Jews are not banned from going into those countries. Israelis are. It's a political ban. It's nothing to do with religion. That's absolutely false.
It's also implying that Muslims were banned for their religion, when the reality is nations were banned because of their conditions of war and terrorism. France was just attacked today by a guy with a machete who immigrated a month ago from Egypt, who's not on the list.
If Islam is culturally compatible with the West, why do 11 Muslim countries still execute gay people?
Well, that would include the Gulf states and the likes of Saudi Arabia, which do business with the West every single day. And who created this Wahhabi doctrine of Islam? Oh, that's right. Britain and the United States of America did.
If Islam is culturally compatible with the West, why do the majority of Muslims living in the UK think that homosexuality should be criminalised?
Well, statistically in the United States, Muslims are actually more likely to support gay rights than Christians.
If Islam is culturally compatible with the West, why do supposedly modern Muslim countries like the United Arab Emirates detain, harass and threaten transgender people when they try to enter the country?
Why is anybody that looks like they could be possibly from a Muslim country pulled to the side in American airports and questioned for hours and hours? And why are people's visas stopped for looking like they're Middle Eastern descent? I literally had a friend who's not even a Muslim, has Iranian background, born and raised in Germany, and they rejected his visa because he did not look German enough.
If Islam is culturally compatible with the West, why do you have something literally called the rape game, Taharush Gamir, and something called Bacha Bazi, where old men have sex with young boys?
Mitzitzer is done in the Jewish religion, where the rabbi goes down onto the baby and literally, yes, the blood off of the circumcised. Yeah, all over Africa, literally practice female genital mutilation. Most of them are Christian. I can pull that out, but that does not represent Christianity. Islam does not endorse raping people. That's ridiculous.
Why do you fail to speak out against Islamic terrorism, yet organise mass protests when someone draws a cartoon of Muhammad?
Muslims protest all over the world against the likes of ISIS because we hate ISIS. They kill more Muslims than they kill anybody else. I myself have been part of protests against Islamic extremists.
Why do you complain about all Muslims being blamed for radical Islam, then shout down and intimidate ex-Muslims who speak out against radical Islam?
Well, there's radical Christians on street corners all over the world that will shout you down for wearing something different other than what they want, but I don't see all Christians under that microscope because I think that's completely ridiculous.
Why do you insist that all Muslims shouldn't be collectively blamed for terrorism, but then collectively blame all Westerners for the actions of our governments in Muslim countries?
All Muslims do not blame all Westerners for the actions of their government, nor do all Westerners blame all Muslims for the actions of their government. That's stupid. Nobody's saying that. Westerners operate all over the Middle East. They're everywhere in the Middle East. People have a little bit of resentment, and there's a lot of ignorant people towards maybe a white face in the Middle East. That's actually justified when your country has been bombed and flooded with extremists, and the weapons coming over to fund and arm the extremists are coming from Western countries.
Why do you insist that Islam is a religion of peace, and then threaten to kill me when I say it isn't?
Wow, somebody sent you an offensive message on Facebook. Wah.
If Islam is a religion of peace, why does the Quran contain 109 passages that call for Muslims to wage war against non-believers?
Bible contains 842 passages which refer to war, death, destruction, and cruelty. Yes, in a bad context. Why? Because these books speak about wars. Nobody's contesting that. read things in context. I can make the Bible and the Quran say whatever I want it to say if I take it out of context.
If Islam is a religion of peace, why do significant numbers of Muslims living in the West support suicide bombings?
Which portion of the Muslim population did you ask the question here, and in which context were you asking them whether suicide bombing is permissible? Really, what were the questions? And who did you actually ask? A bunch of Wahhabis?
If Islam is a religion of peace, why is there no popular Muslim peace movement?
There's a number. There are hundreds of Muslim organizations that are peaceful, and they are big within the Islamic community. In fact, the most famous activists in the Islamic community are 100% for peace, but they don't get on the television. I wonder why.
If Islam is a religion of peace, why do I routinely receive messages from Muslims who agree with me, but who are afraid to speak out for fear of being killed?
Killed by who and killed where? And these people are Muslim.
If terrorism is all just a backlash against Western foreign policy, why are most victims of terrorism other Muslims?
Because Al-Qaeda was created by the CIA, and many of these Wahhabi groups are funded, have been funded openly by Western governments and backed by Western governments. In fact, until 2003, the US invasion of Iraq, there was not one single suicide bombing in that country's history. Read a book, please.
Why do you constantly invoke the Crusades, a 600-year-old defensive war, to make apologies for modern-day Islamic terrorism? That's not an argument. Not a defensive war.
George Bush actually said we were on a crusade. Well, the Blackwater mercenaries in Iraq were Christians, so-called Christians. Do I stereotype them all and say that they are also an example?
Why do you complain about France banning the burkini, when if Western women visited beaches in Islamic countries wearing what they wanted to wear, they'd be attacked and imprisoned?
Which Muslim countries are you talking about? Maybe some people in the society would disagree, but who are the ones that you're talking about who actually do this and persecute people because of wearing what they want to wear? Oh, that's right, the Gulf states and the likes of Saudi Arabia, which are in bed with the Western governments.
Why do you try to shout down criticism of Islam by calling it racist, when Islam isn't a race?
Well, some people don't use the right terminology. Sorry, I'll tell them to get a dictionary. You're a bigot. Happy?
Why after every Islamic terror attack is your primary concern a backlash against Muslims? Like, if a far-right troll kills Muslims, should our primary concern be a backlash against far-right trolls?
No, because far-right trolls aren't getting covered all over the media and painted as if every single one trolling people with right-wing views is an extremist and going to kill everyone and a threat to society.
West is so selfish for not taking in enough Syrian refugees. Why have the 5 wealthiest Muslim countries taken in virtually no Syrian refugees?
Are you seriously trying to tell me that the Middle East, Muslim countries, do not take in the most Syrian refugees? You are absolutely ridiculous. Could you imagine if there was a video made that said 20 questions for Jews, or 20 questions for blacks, or 20 questions for Mexicans, or 20 questions for homosexuals? What is being done in the mainstream media now is exactly what this video is doing. I could use examples from South America and South American gangs, which are primarily Christian, and say that all Christians are like this because of that. But, of course, they are not, and that is a ridiculous proposition.
The West is so evil, oppressive, and Islamophobic. Why do 50 million of you live here?
100% you should be able to question Islamic extremists, but you should not be able to isolate an entire community and then pander to basically the warmongers that are going to create wars based upon hatred stirred for the populations that they are going to continue to bomb. Everybody, don't buy into this. It's uneducated and it's stupid. Just like the people who spread this information. Peace. ISIS, Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. Listen, yeah.
Just to add weight to what TUT was saying, I like to give the example of Muhammad Ali. You know Muhammad Ali, the Muslim, the boxer, the champion. The champ is here. He refused to go to Vietnam and kill people for no reason. The slogan during that war, by the way, was "Kill a commie for Christ." So we see how Christianity was being used in that war. Kill a commie for Christ. Well, a lot of the Muslims didn't want to go to Vietnam and didn't go to Vietnam because they were siding with peace instead of war and didn't feel the need to kill the evil atheist communists. Muhammad Ali worked to get hostages out of Iraq, and he succeeded. Here's a clip.
He went to Iraq at the invitation of a peace organization led by Ramsey Clark, the former U.S. Attorney General. The group hoped Ali's global popularity and enormous prestige in the Muslim world might prevent a war. Ali wanted to help the peace process, but his immediate aim was to bring U.S. hostages back home.
We hope and pray that it's not a war, and with the little thought and for the fame that I have, showing the real side of the man.
After a week, with no word from Saddam, Ali had a crisis of his own. He'd run out of his Parkinson's medication and could barely function. Nored found doctors at the Irish hospital in Baghdad to replenish Ali's medication. Their only request? A group photo.
Over here, Judge, come on.
Ali was back on his feet just in time. The Bush White House disapproved of Ali's trip, fearing Saddam would use it as a propaganda tool. The images of Ali and the dictator led to a more cynical reaction from some in the media. They questioned Ali's motives, implying he'd taken the meeting to boost his own profile.
The accusation did not ring true. He wanted to get everybody that was left there, Americans, released. What did he have to gain? You know, he had everything to lose.
If he failed to secure any concessions from Hussein, his reputation would take a beating. Ali had to persuade a man who was openly defying the UN and President Bush to release hostages to him. He'd also have to listen, diplomatically, as Saddam praised himself for his treatment of the hostages.
Some of them wanted a certain list of video films, and we succeeded in providing all those films. Not all Iraqi homes have video recorders. Isn't this hospitality?
Ali assured Hussein he'd bring back to the U.S. an honest account of his visit to Iraq.
I'm not going to let Hajj Muhammad Ali go back to the United States without having a number of the American citizens here accompanying him.
After Saddam agreed to release 15 human shields, Ali and his staff prepared to take them out of Iraq as soon as possible.
It'd be nice to have the detainees come over this evening.
Right. That don't mean nothing. That don't mean nothing. That don't mean nothing.
He's our guy.
You know, I thanked him, and he said, go home, be with my family. You know, I spoke to him very briefly, but what a great guy.
Champ, all I can say is that there is no way in the world that I can adequately thank you.
Thank God. God works through people. It's not me.
Yeah, I know, but it's, you literally saved my life.
We need more Muslims like Muhammad Ali. We need less like the Wahhabi cannon fodder that the U.S. has set up by financing madrasas that preach fanaticism all over the world so that the U.S. can generate cannon fodder for its proxy wars. But that's too complicated and nuanced for somebody who talks so slowly. I want to thank TUT for doing a kind of mini woodshed on one of InfoWars' peons. I saw Jonestown was on Joe Rogan for 3 hours, and he got off talking about evil dimensions and all this other nonsense on the 911th episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, and really didn't talk about 9/11. And when he's finally asked about it, gibbered on like, it's compartmentalized. He had no goddamn answer. This is just my reports from it. When I have enough energy to listen to Jones for 3 hours, I feel like I've filled my quota for the year with the previous woodshed, but I will have to listen to it and then throw him back into the shed. I want everyone, this is my call to action, to get on Rogan's case that if he really wants to talk about conspiracies, then don't have someone that comes on and sensationalizes and covers up conspiracies by creating a bunch of wild and insane ones, which therefore create a tar baby out of all of these very serious events where people are getting killed. And in these wars, that has caused so much suffering for so many. And Jones takes it as infotainment. Alternate dimensions of evil controlling people. It was such a waste of time. He shouldn't have Melonhead on. And Watson, it's fine. He's against feminism and he's extreme leftist, but then he's essentially the same thing. He's the right-wing version of an SJW.